Hey guys, we're here today in Valheim. I'm jumping back into the game for the Mistlands update, and for the first time I'm playing multiplayer with some friends. And one of the things that I noticed playing with other people is how little information the game gives you early on, and how there are some things early on in the Meadows that can inconvenience you and make the early parts of the game more frustrating than they need to be. So we're going to go through 5 simple tips for the Meadows that'll hopefully help you, whether you're a returning player trying to get back in the groove of things, or someone picking up the game for the first time. Tip number 1 has to do with the raspberry bushes. You'll no doubt come across some early on in your travels and be picking them so you have something to eat. The key thing to remember these is they do respawn over time. So make sure you don't accidentally hit them or get any enemies near them and destroy them, or you'll be out of a good resource for later in the game. The other important thing to remember with raspberry bushes is to mark them on your map when you find a good bundle of them, because they are something that you will use throughout the game to make other dishes and other foods. And you'll want to remember spots with a high concentration of them to come back for later. This is also a tip that you should remember throughout the entire game. There are a lot of plants and bushes that do respawn, so anytime you find a large collection of them, make sure you mark it on your map and come back for them when you need them most. Tip number 2, how to track down and hunt boars properly. No doubt after you got some berries in your stomach, you're going to be hunting some bigger game. Boars drop leather scraps to make a lot of equipment, and they drop boar meat, which is a much better food for combat. Now once you track down boars, provided you have any decent stone weapon or flint weapon, they're pretty easy to kill. So the big difficulty with boars is tracking them down and remembering not to hold a torch while you chase them, as they are afraid of fire and will run in terror. Once you put the torch away, they will come at you, making it a much easier fight. Which brings us back to the most difficult part of getting boars, and that is finding them. Instead of running aimlessly around the meadows looking for them, try and narrow your searches. Most of the time, boars are found in clearings and openings, not in the woods themselves. They also like to huddle around in the ruined villages you might come across, normally in the fenced-in areas that used to be gardens. The other place you'll find high concentration of boars is oftentimes around the runestones found in the meadows. These runestones give you lore about the game and information about different creatures. They are pretty easy to spot, so if you see one, make sure you head that way and find out if there are any boars hanging around. Tip number 3 is how to properly hunt down deer. Finding deer in the meadows is a little bit easier than finding boar, as they're kind of spread throughout the whole thing. The biggest key to finding deer is to listen out for their sounds. Make sure anytime you hear deer around you, you slow down and don't spook them, because once they start taking off and running away, they're very annoying to catch. Now there are plenty of methods for killing deer themselves. I've got one friend of mine that likes to chase them down like a madman with an axe, and based upon the hide and the meat he comes back with, it seems to work pretty good. I, however, can't get this method to work myself, but to each their own. Option number 2 is to make a bow and arrows and just shoot the deer down. Now I will say Valheim's archery system kind of has a learning curve to it, and the aiming is very wonky. But if you get the hang of it and you like the archery of the game, this can be a pretty simple method, since one arrow will take down a deer. My personal favorite, however, is using sneak, approaching the deer from the back or the side, and using a flint knife's alternate attack to leap over at them and take them out in one shot. This doesn't require any aiming or ammunition on your part, although you do need to learn a little bit of how the lunge attack works and what kind of distance you can cover. The good part about this is sneak is a very valuable skill later in the game, and this will level up for you while also yielding you the materials you need. Tip number 4 is to stay at your base or around it, or go to sleep when night comes. As you've seen so far throughout the meadows, this is a fairly peaceful zone. But the other biomes in the game are not that way, and you might be closer to them than you think. Creatures in Valheim move around and venture out more at night, and they are in higher numbers, making it a very dangerous thing to explore while it's night. If you're trying to avoid your first death or another death at this point, try and stay roughly where it's safe at your base, or just sleep the night away altogether. Monsters from the higher level biomes will travel into the meadows at night, and you may be closer to the border of one than you think, so it's best to play it safe, and this kind of goes for the entire game as a whole. Exploring at night is not for the faint of heart and is not an easy task. Tip number 5, focus on your buffs and your debuffs. In the upper right hand corner to the left of the minimap, you can see a list of buffs and debuffs. If you open up your inventory and then move up to the top right and click the crow icon, it will show you your active effects on the middle of the screen, breaking down what these buffs and debuffs actually do when they're on you. The buffs and debuffs in Valheim play a critical role in the game and can make things way harder than they need to be or make them a lot smoother. For example, when you sleep in your bed at night or hang around in a shelter near a campfire, you can gain the rested buff, which gives you massive bonuses and can benefit you greatly for a short amount of time. On the flip side of that, if you're dealing with the wet or the cold debuff, you can have some big negatives that make it really annoying to travel in the game or combat enemies. There are a ton of environmental debuffs in the game, and you might always have something new popping up there that you need to investigate and see what it actually does. Two important ones to pay attention to is no skill drain and corpse run. Anytime you die in Valheim, you lose a part of your skills that you've built up over time. For a short amount of time after death, you have no skill drain, meaning a consecutive death won't lose any more skill for you. This means you can be a little more reckless trying to get your corpse and your items back without the worry of losing more and more skill every time you die. The other one to pay attention to is corpse run. As soon as you pick up your corpse, you get a short-term buff of massive bonuses that can help you get out of the area and escape with your gear and your life. Utilize this short time frame to make it out and time out when you go in and get your corpse to be in the best situation that you can be. Alright guys, that's all we got for today. I hope this video helped you, whether you're a returning player jumping back into the game and trying to just kind of jog your memory and refresh, or if you're a new player picking it up for the first time and are looking to take down the Meadows with the most ease possible and trying to delay your first death for as long as you can. Hopefully everyone's enjoying the Mistlands update and is having an enjoyable time hunting things down in Valheim. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.